call to order at 6:00 p.m. Item 2, roll call. All councilmen are present. Item 3, Pledge of Allegiance and the silent prayer in lieu of invocation. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. Item 4, reading of the minutes of the previous meeting held on April 10th, 2025 and April 15th, 2025. See attachments 1 and 2. Council, what are your wishes? I get a motion by Veneman, seconded by Pluis, to approve the minutes. Any questions, comments, changes? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 5, consider the appointment of a city employee to serve on the Ethics Board to replace Eric Dobbin for a term ending November 1st, 2028. See attachment number 3. At this time, I will open the floor for nominations of somebody, one of the employees. Sorry. What's that? There's two, so you guys are choosing.
I'll nominate Mike Berger.
Any other nominations to be presented at this time?
I'll nominate Matt McHugh.
All right, we will go A for Matt and nay for Mike. At this point, I closed the nomination since they're both nominated, so. I for Matt McHugh. Nay for Mike. What's that?
Would either of you like to say something? You don't have to. I'm just offering. Okay. I recognize him.
There we go. My name is Mike Berger. I work at the police department here. When this spot opened up, I think the chief put out an email, and I work with Matt McHugh, and we kind of talked within the department with each other, and I knew Matt wanted to put in for this spot, and then Jennifer actually put out another email, so I thought there was multiple spots open. So I put my name in for it as well. So I'm actually going to withdraw my nomination because I think Matt McHugh will do a great job at this ethics board position. He does come with a lot of character from his background that I've learned at different places over his career at other places. So I'm just going to withdraw my nomination and recommend Matt McHugh for this spot. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. And just for clarification, yeah, that was my mistake. Thought that I was looking for somebody. Jennifer corrected me. We sent it out to all employees who could then, put their name in the hat. So that's how that happened. So thanks, Mike. All right. So then we are down to one nomination, Matt McHugh, and we just need to, yep, so go ahead and cast your votes. Yes, Dennis? So at this point in time, Mike has withdrawn himself from the race, so it's just Matt McHugh that's the only nomination. So at this point, we'll just be voting yes. Okay. Go ahead and cast your votes. All right, motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Matt McHugh is the new appointee. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your service. All right, item 6, consider for confirmation Mayor Zacker's appointments to various committees, commissions, and boards. Attachment 4. Council, what are your wishes? I get a motion by Palmquist to,
Motion to approve Mayor Zacker's appointment to the Visitor and Convention Bureau, Julie Tim, and the Police and Fire Commission, Thomas Anderson and Lee Albright.
I got a motion by Palmquist, seconded by Tim. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 7, consider for adoption an ordinance to amend Chapter 11 zoning, Article 16, landscaping and buffer yards, as recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at the meeting held on March 3rd, 2025. See attachment number 5. Council, what are your wishes? Mr. Catno?
Yeah, Mr. Kearns, can you give an overview of exactly the changes being made or proposed?
Yeah, so this, some of these changes, the next two items specifically relate to direction by council and the mayor to simplify some of our development ordinances in relation to, again, expansions or new projects within the city. One of which is landscaping. There are some things in this ordinance that kind of overhaul the landscape requirements. In most cases, there are reductions in the landscape numbers, but there's also clarification. Over time, we've recognized certain things are confusing to landscape architects as well as, you know, entrepreneurs that are just building a, you know, a small office building in the community. So we've tried to, again, reduce those, some certain standards, provide clarity to the ordinance, and simplify it on our behalf so that when we're enforcing the code, we've improved our efficiency. And that's what this is doing. If you want, I can walk through what some of those changes are, but you'll see a lot of things have been removed and strike-through'd. We've removed some of the tables to pursue a little bit simpler method for identifying those requirements. We've clarified buffer yard requirements, and I'd be happy to walk through them if asked.
No, that was good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
I get a motion by Catna to approve. I get a second by Palmquist. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your vote. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 8, consider for adoption an ordinance to amend Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, Article 6, Division 3, general standards pertaining to driveways, Article 17, parking and loading facilities, and Appendix E, general definitions, as recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at the meeting held on April 7th, 2025. See attachment 6. Council, what are your wishes? Mr. Austin?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance proposes updates to the zoning ordinance related to driveways, parking and definitions, specifically including language about gravel driveways. While the Planning Commission recommended approval at its April 7 meeting, they are scheduled to review and possibly update the standards for gravel at their next meeting. So because those upcoming standards would directly affect the language in this ordinance, it would be appropriate, in my opinion, to send this item back to the planning commission. This would ensure the ordinance aligns with the most current and consistent standards. So I'm going to motion to send this item back to planning commission.
I got a motion by Austin to send this back to the planning commission for further review and clarification. I got a second by Palmquist. Sorry, Mr. Catino, sorry. Hold on. Mr. Kearns.
Yeah, can I just clarify one thing? So there were, the timeline of events here is that the driveway standards were reviewed twice. There was an ordinance in March that was reviewed to simplify the driveway standards, and gravel was mentioned twice. At that time, they did not want to act on gravel for residential properties, so that was withheld from the ordinance. Last month in April, discussion and another ordinance was presented for just residential gravel driveways. That was postponed for action and will come back in front of Plan Commission next month in June. The gravel that's outlined here, if you specifically reference it, it's on page 2 of the ordinance. Section 5 is surfacing for, or hard surfacing requirements for commercial and industrial type uses. So the gravel that's permitted here is allowing an industrial user via special exception to pursue gravel. An instance that this would occur would be if you've got like a trucking facility that stores semi-trailers in a large enclosed area, that they would not have to necessarily pave it. They could request to use gravel in lieu of pavement, and then that would be an exception that could be granted by the Plan Commission. So those gravel standards look similar to the residential standards, but they are not. They are specifically relating to commercial and industrial type uses.
So am I to understand that the commercial industrial is in this ordinance, but the residential has been held out to go back to planning commission?
Correct.
All right. Are you,
So this ordinance does call out methods of construction, which outlines that you need to have a containment edge, and it specifies depth of which you have to excavate and then lay matting, and there's a lot of standards to the gravel installation, which I think several of those, in my opinion, are overreaching and create some costly expenses to those commercial outfits that want to install gravel. So in my mind, I think they both go hand in hand when you're calling out the same standards, and I'd like to discuss that with Planning Commission to try to minimize some of them standards.
okay. So then your motion stands as is, and it's seconded. Is there any further, or Mr. Catnow, you had some questions?
Yeah, regarding the gravel, I just wanted to discuss an incident that happened in my district. So the ordinance officer stopped by a residential property and spoke to the owner and stated that the changes are coming, and this is what she would need to do to fit into the code. So she kind of called me in a panic, thinking that this needed to be addressed right away. Explained to her it hasn't been confirmed by council. Changes could be made. We really don't know where it's headed. But by that time, she had already bought all the supplies. So I'm glad to hear we're not considering the residential properties tonight, but I do have a statement from her that I'll read. Gravel is a suitable and cost-effective substrate that will adequately meet the goals of the proposed code. The more expensive options needlessly exhilarate most people's already compromised finances and cause them undue stress and harm. I understand that some perceive a possible problem for driveways that are close to their neighbors' houses and other structures. I believe that complications can be mitigated by provisions, constraints on the lot line distances, etc. Thank you, Gail Robinson. I just wanted to bring that out tonight, as I know Planning Commission as a whole has took these up in previous meetings, and the minutes are here. But also to speak to those who may be under the impression that they need to do it sometime soon. This is the direction that the council is giving, and this is the status of where we're at in this decision.
Any other questions or comments? All right, the motion on the table and the second is to send this back to the planning commission to get further clarity on the commercial use of rock substrates. So no further questions or comments. Go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 9, presentation of Community Development Department 2023-2024 Annual Report. See attachment 7. Mr. Kearns?
Thank you, Mayor. I won't share on the screen with you guys the report, but it is part of the packet. In past years, we've done an annual report. Last year, or the last report we did was for 21 and 22. Prior to that, we did an annual report for year 2020. Given the busyness within our department in 2023, we've coupled these the last 2 years together in this report, so it encompasses 2023 and 2024. The first page summarizes the report. The first section is economic development. It summarizes the different developments that have occurred over the last 2 years. Again, I won't go into great detail. A lot of the projects were institutional in nature, however. Then you get into additional economic development initiatives. Property redevelopment is identified. Paper mill redevelopment is identified, some of the things that have occurred on the paper mill. Again, there's in-depth analysis and description on those items. Data center development with digital power optimization, purchasing or leasing about 15 acres north of the paper mill. We had a developer tour in 2023. I can say we're hosting another developer tour in June of 2025, where about a dozen developers come to the community and I showcase some of the sites that we have available for development. Moving on to the next section, we summarize permits and inspections. The uniqueness here is that in 2024, we nearly tripled our permit numbers, primarily due to the storm that occurred in the spring of 2024. So we issued several roofing permits, and therefore, as a result, there was increased permit fees as well that were collected. You can obviously see the numbers and see the trends. I try to summarize those in the report as well. We also partnered in 2023 with a third-party plan review agency to streamline our plan reviews in our office and focus more on inspections. The next section is planning and zoning. You'll see the planning and zoning requests over the years and the trends there. You know, we finished a recovery and redevelopment plan for the paper mill site. We've revised some ordinances, including fencing, obviously now in 2025 with landscaping and pursuit of driveways. We completed a wayfinding sign project. We've partnered with some agencies to improve our bicycling within the community. And we now in 2025 have completed the downtown master plan and hope to have that adopted in the next month. There was a Foundry preliminary reuse assessment that occurred. We also have a second phase of that assessment occurring now on another grant we got from the DNR. And the last section that we summarize is historic preservation. We played a more proactive role starting in 2023 with designation as a certified local government, which allows us to pursue grants to do an intensive historical survey within the community and hopefully eventually adopt some historic districts to allow our residents the opportunity to pursue tax credits for historically relevant projects. The last item on there, again, occurred in 2023. I don't think it's news to anybody, but code enforcement was shifted from our office into the police department. With that, I'd be happy to elaborate further on anything on the report. Otherwise, it will be available shortly on our website. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I appreciate. Oh, sorry, Ms. Palmquist.
Thank you. I appreciate the report. I know the fire department and the police department do a yearly report as well, and I think they're very helpful for informing the community of what we're doing routinely. One thing that I noticed when I was reading this report is that the Planning Commission is one of our only commissions that doesn't have a summary of general activities and that are related to community development. And when I was reading this report, I thought that there would be a lot of interest from the council and likely from the committee to understand as these projects are progressing, if there's any issues encountered with ordinances or zoning, that those can be addressed by the commission. If there's any sort of summary update, similar to the way Paul and Joe give us updates for the other committee, it would be great to include that within the planning commission meetings. Other than that, I think it's a great report, and your department is doing great with our community and getting things developed and making sure everything is going smoothly. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Item 10, consider a request from the Community Development Department to adopt the Downtown Master Plan. We are going to be moving this to the June committee or council meeting. So we are passing on. Yes,
It'll
sir.
go to Plan Commission first and then come to council in June.
All right, in June. Thank you. Item 11, consider for adoption the actions of the Planning Commission at its meeting held May 5th, 2025. Mr. Kearns.
One moment here, let me pull it up here. All right, the Plan Commission met at 4 p.m. on May 5th in the council chambers. A quorum was present, and a list of others in attendance are available in our office or the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. Item 1 was approval of the report from April 7th. There was a motion by Marutz to approve the report, second by Tao. That motion carried 7-0. Item 2 was a request from the Wisconsin Rapids Area Habitat for Humanity for a special exception to exceed the floor area of an attached garage located at 165 21st Avenue South. Staff provided a summary of the report recommending approval. There was a motion by Marutz to approve the request subject to the two conditions outlined in the staff report. There was a second by Davin. That motion carried 7-0. Item 4 was moved up on the agenda. Item 4 was a request from the City of Wisconsin Rapids to discontinue, vacate a portion of Harris Street between 7th Avenue North to the east dead end. Engineering staff provided a summary of the request. Motion by Austin to approve the request. Second by Tao. That motion carried 7-0. Item 3 was a public hearing and action on a request from the City of Wisconsin Rapids to amend Chapter 11 Zoning Ordinance, Article 6, Division 3, relating to general standards pertaining to driveways. Staff provided a summary of the request. The Plan Commission discussed amongst themselves the item. Public hearing opened at 4:29 p.m. No one spoke in favor or against. The public hearing closed at 4:30 p.m. Further discussion ensued between the Plan Commission. Eventually, there was a motion made by Austin to table the item until the next Planning Commission meeting. Second by Marutz. That motion carried 7-0. Item 5 was adjournment. There was a motion by Zachary to adjourn the meeting, second by Austin. Meeting adjourned at 4:49 p.m. With that, I submit it for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes? I got a motion by Palmquist to
Approve.
approve. I got a second by Pluis. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Item passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 12, consider for adoption the actions of the Standing Committee of the Common Council as follows. Finance and Property Committee meeting held on May 6, 2025. Mr. Katna.
Thank you. The Finance and Property Committee met at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 6, in the council chambers at City Hall. Item 1, the meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. Item 2, a presentation by the Southwood County Humane Society. Item 3, consider and take action on a request from the Park and Recreation Commission for approval to undertake improvements at Whitterfield, specifically the purchase of new baseball field lights in the amount of $200,000 to be funded partially through a request from the commission to use parks outlay and Whitterfield outlay funds, which were not previously budgeted. It was moved by Tim, seconded by Catnaw to approve the purchase of new baseball field lights at Whitterfield in the amount of $200,000, with $120,000 to be funded through monies from the Legacy Foundation, League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the American Legion, and RISA, and $41,064 from Parks Outlay. And Whitterfield outlay funds and the balance, $41,064, expected to be paid by the rafters. Motion carried 3-0. Item 4, consider and take action on a recommendation from the Park and Recreation Department to review bids and consider approval of the low qualified bidder for the Zoo Otter exhibit. It's moved by Veneman, seconded by Tim to accept the bid from Ascent Construction for $219,520 for Zoo Otter exhibit. Motion carried 3-0. Item 5, consider and take action on giving a quit claim deed to Wood County, transferring the former county annex building back to the county, address 184 2nd Street South. Moved by Tim, seconded by Veneman to approve the quit claim deed to Wood County, transferring the former county annex building back to the county. Motion carried 3-0. Item 6, consider and take action on an agreement to obtain the former Northern Steel Castings property from Wood County, address 330 9th Avenue South. Moved by Tim, seconded by Veneman to approve an agreement to obtain the former Northern Steel Castings property from Wood County. Motion carried 2-1 with Catnaw voting in the negative. Item 7, consider and take action on the recommendation of a disallowance of a claim from Joanne Olson and attorney Todd Korb on behalf of Siwana Bambaji for injuries and damages allegedly sustained after a welfare check call to Mrs. Bambaji's home, where city police officers responded on a claim for assistance. Moved by Tim, seconded by Catnaw to disallow the claim. Motion carried 3-0. Item 8, consider and take action on the recommendation of disallowance of claims from Curtis Orlowski for alleged damages sustained during a traffic stop by city police officers. Moved by Catnaw, seconded by Tim to disallow the claims. Motion carried 3-0. Item 9, consider for approval the appointment of Mattel Patel as successor agent for retail Class B fermented malt beverage license for Kelly's Liquor Store located at 2131 8th Street South. Moved by Tim, seconded by Veneman to approve the license. Motion carried 3-0. Item 10, consider request from Wisconsin Rapids Ranger Baseball, Quentin Ellis, agent, for a 6-month retail Class B fermented malt beverage license from June 1st to November 30th, 2025 for the premise located at Wisconsin Rapids Area Sports Complex, 1801 16th Street South. Moved by Catnaw, seconded by Veneman to approve the license. Motion carried 3-0. Item 11, consider request from Wisconsin Rapids Women's Softball Association, Jamie McDonald, agent, for a 6-month retail Class B fermented malt beverage license from May 21st to November 21st for the premise located at Mead Field, 311 17th Avenue South, for the women's concession stand at the Women's Softball Diamond area. This item will be considered at the June Property and Finance Committee. No action was taken. Item 12, initial review of the 25-26 retail alcohol licenses. They were reviewed. No action was taken. Item 13, consider for approval a proposal from Ehlers for a TID 7 project plan amendment. Moved by Catnaw, seconded by Tim to approve a proposal from Ehlers for a TID 7 project amendment. Motion carried 3-0. Item 14, audit of the bills. Moved by Catnaw, seconded by Tim to approve checks 25419 to 25796. Motion carried 3-0. Item 15, set next meeting date. The next meeting will be Tuesday, June 3rd at 5 p.m. Item 16 was adjournment. It was moved by Veneman, seconded by Tim to adjourn. Motion carried 3-0. Meeting was adjourned at 6:13 p.m. And with that, I make a motion to accept these minutes, holding out item 6.
All right. I get a motion to accept the minutes holding out item 6. Ms. Palmquist,
I'll second, including holding out item 3.
and I got a second to hold out, to approve holding out item 3 and item 6. Any further questions or comments? go ahead and cast your votes. Okay. All right, go ahead and cast your votes, please. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Starting with item 3, Ms. Palmquist.
Thank you. I've done a lot of reading up on contracts and understanding today, and I believe we have a few members in our audience tonight who would like to speak on this issue. If we're open to public comment.
Yes, go ahead.
For allowing me to present to you. I did watch the Property and Finance Committee meeting, and I wanted to first address a few of the things for better understanding of where the rafters are at.
Can you go ahead and state your name and address, please?
My name is Ken Day. I'm the general manager of the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters, and that location is 521 Lincoln Street, Wisconsin Rapids.
All right, thank you.
So the first thing that was brought up during that meeting was that Furniture and Appliance Mart affiliation with the team, and that's because of the owners, Joe and Vincent Fonte. They are part of that organization, but Furniture and Appliance Mart does not own or operate the team. It is solely the two brothers, Joe and Vincent Fonte, and their commitment to this community is significant. And since they bought the team in February of 2020, they have done nothing but put in their own personal savings into the organization to keep it alive and keep it here. And that is a significant element. Some of the other things is I want the council to understand that Whitterfield and the Rafters are not just another community park. It is ultimately controlled by the city, yes. The Rafters do have a lease with the Northwoods League with the city, and my meaning for it's not just another community park is this organization generates funds for the community in multiple levels, multiple ways, and we had an economic impact study performed in 2023, and it's an independent study, so it's not just numbers that we create to make everybody feel good. This team brings in, on average, $1.58 million in the 11-week season to this community. Hotels, restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, grocery stores. That's for all the things coming in. It also helps stimulate because of our streaming media, where we average 21,000 viewers per game across the country. It also stimulates interest in this area, let alone the players we bring in from all over the country, interns we bring in from all over the country, and some of them are also from other countries. So this year we have a player from Japan, we've had Mexico, we've had Panama. There's a lot of interest, and it extends and brings some of that activity into here. We also employ 85 people part-time during the season. So they're involved in the communities, plus we have a devoted fan base in this region, not just the city. And our attendance typically during a season averages about 1,000 fans per game for the whole season. Later in the season, we average 1,800 to 2,500 per game. So it's interesting. When I came on board the organization in February of 2023, one of the first things I noted was that the field lights were quite inadequate, and I softly started suggesting we try to do an upgrade. I made an official request to the Finance and Property Board in January of 2024 to help modernize the lighting on the field. We also stream on ESPN+, let alone the Northwoods League streaming avenues. And they complain that the lighting on the field, we're getting spots, it's old. We've had assessment of it. The lighting itself is 33 years old. When the electricians that specialize in athletic field lighting said those particular lights were getting 20% of the output that it should be if they were brand new. Even with the old, we're getting 20% output. So that's pretty significant. We attended the Parks and Rec Committee meeting and discussed this. Jake Klingforth has been really advocating and helping and trying to figure things out. During that meeting, the vote was made and affirmed that no tax money was going to be used for the $200,000 and that the full amount of that was covered through the different avenues he had in those minutes, and those can be reviewed. One other thing that I would like to really point out, and this is kind of the key element, I know the finance and property said that the organization should pay $41,000 of the new lighting. But in the lease agreement and the obligations on the behalf of the city in this lease agreement was signed just prior to the new ownership and in February of 2020. And that was dated February 3rd, 2020. On page 4, section 5A, paragraph 1, and I'll read this to you verbatim. It says, city maintenance and replacement obligations specifically include stadium and other lights, ballast and poles, the sprinkler system, water heaters, outfield fencing and perimeter gates, blacktop and bathroom fixtures. However, any expense for the repair or replacement of stadium lighting, ballast, and poles, which is under $5,000, shall be the responsibility of the rafters due to interpretation. So my interpretation of this is $5,000 and above is the city's responsibility. Below $5,000 is the rafters' responsibility. That is all I have.
Thank you. Sue, did you want to clarify?
Yeah, I guess you weren't there when this was negotiated, correct?
I was not.
Yeah. So I guess the main question is, do the lights need to be replaced, right? And I think that's something we had talked about with previous owners for quite some time. But at the time, they were adequate for all of our users, okay? But they needed to be, the lights needed to be replaced at times. And we, along with the rafters, agreed that the rafters should be responsible for replacing all those lights. The poles and whatever, they're fine. As the lights go out or if they need to be repaired, anything, because the city was doing it, and in the lease, then you took on that extra responsibility of, well, yeah, to keep them going, you're going to pay anything that's $5,000 or less. That doesn't necessarily say that if you wanted new lights, that then we had to pay for them. I mean, it's all negotiable, obviously, right? But I'm just saying this isn't excusing us from requesting that if you want new lights so that it looks better on ESPN Plus and whatever, that then we might not work out something where you might be expected to contribute. And that's always kind of been the talk when in dealing with the leases. I've done 3 leases with various owners. So that's what that 5,000 means. It doesn't mean that if the full, I mean, I would agree if it was necessary that the lights stop working or the lights that we would have to talk about replacing them, and we would probably replace them. But I don't know that we're necessarily at that point. And if you, obviously we have this opportunity now with a grant, and the city's using its kind of goodwill with Legacy in order to get that money. So that's the city's helping to get that money. And then the other volunteers, and the $90,000 is taxpayer money. It's to say it's not taxpayer money is not correct. It's money that's revenue from the city that could go other places. So it's to go to the lights, that is 90,000 of taxpayer money. But I guess I think we're still at the point where, do we need new lights? And you've said yourself you're requesting them. So I think that's a conversation to have of, who's going to pay for it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I would like to say, yes, absolutely, the lights need to be replaced. As Jake knows, it's extremely difficult to find the components for the lights that are currently there, let alone climbers to replace the lights. New lights, LED lighting, standard in the industry now, would equate, and these are not the very top of the line, this is just to make it satisfactory, and it's high school level lighting, which is not collegiate televised lighting, which is, the quote we got for that last year was $394,000. So,
Right, and I don't dispute any of that it could look a lot better, and because of your requirements for television and so on. But I think the other thing to remember is, back when the Raptors came, that because of the lot of money that was put in, hundreds of thousands of dollars on repainting, $60,000 for the outfield wall, $25,000 for the scoreboard. I mean, there's a lot of money that the city has put in also during the 15 years that the Raptors have been here. And I think that the talk, in the background was always the talk about the lights. And I think it was more, well, and with anything that it was always, if you wanted something better or bigger or brighter or a new, Craft River or a new accessible seating, that was something that we generally wouldn't take part in, and that you would do, right? And I kind of think of the lights, kind of along that, but I agree. I think it, I guess the city is asking for some contribution towards that, or at least the finance committee was. But I'm just wanting to make the point that the 5,000 is not a concession, that if there are new lights, that then you maybe shouldn't contribute, or especially if the reason for the lights is, for your team. And I agree, it would be great to get new lights, and it's be great to take advantage of the money that's available. But for who should pay for it, I guess that's not my call necessarily. But
Ms. Palmquist?
Thank you. Going back to the contract and both of our parties, I think what is clear after reviewing that is that both parties significantly contribute to the success of the Wisconsin Rapids Raptors in every way. You also contribute to our community financially by hiring employees, and I think it is a mutually beneficial agreement. I also understand that the lighting could be considered a capital improvement to Witter Field, as the light fixtures currently work. However,
not all.
okay, the light fixtures are semi-sufficient. We would be fulfilling our contractual obligations by replacing them with a one-to-one replacement. However, the wiring inside the poles is over 30 years old. The ballast, capacitors, and fuses are corroded. The metal halide, high-pressure sodium, and fluorescent lamps have been phased out of the lighting industry over the last 15 to 16 years, and the parts and pieces are hard to come by. So there will come a time that the lights do not work. And if we wait until that point in time, then we will violate our contractual obligations. The Raptors won't be able to play at the field without lighting, and then they are free to exit that contract early if they wish. So when we could do a one-to-one replacement, the cost of that is likely going to be similar to replacing the lighting with LED fixtures. If I had to replace the lighting in my house, I would not upgrade to the same fixtures I have today. I would upgrade to the LED fixtures, and that is a replacement of the lighting that is there. Because the Raptors weren't there to represent during the Property and Finance Committee meeting, and there's clearly some more discussion to be had, I would motion to send this back to Property and Finance Committee to determine exactly how we're going to pay for and obtain the LED lighting fixtures.
Yeah, Mr. Catno?
Thank you. I'm just gonna put this out there, if it may be coming back to finance and property anyways. So I'll start with, we're talking about the $200,000. Just to clarify, that is just for the bulbs. That is not for installation, which would be an additional cost. The city has raised or would contribute 160,000 of that approximately, and the Finance and Property Committee asked that the rafters, who will use the lighting mostly, and the request came from you guys, contribute 40,000. So without even knowing what the cost of installation is, and to purchase these bulbs now, and then we would enter into the next phase, even if we agreed to this right now, that you guys pay 40, we pay 160. There may be additional costs, which would be the installation, which then I'm sure would totally fall on us, and that is all taxpayer money. So there may be further discussion on this, but I just have it find it hard getting to a point that the request came from the rafters. The city's raised 160, and we're just asking for a contribution of 40 of that 200,000, and then there's another cost to be bared after we purchase the bulbs. So just keep in mind, this is just the bulbs, and there would have to be another discussion after the bulbs come in about how the installation is paid for. And the money wasn't budgeted for. It is in park outlay. I mean, this isn't usually how we spend money in the city. We usually determine it at budget time and go from there. But yeah, I'll leave it to the body.
All right, any other questions or comments? I got a motion by Palmquist. Oh, Mr. Tim?
Sorry, I just wanted to say I attended that Parks and Rec meeting, and it's a little disturbing that we didn't know taxpayer money was being used at that time. It may have never even came out of Parks and Rec Commission at that point, because we were told, and Jeff even asked, is there any taxpayer money being used for this purchase? And we were told no. So it's possible that it may not have even come out of that committee without reconsideration. So just wanted to say that.
All right, I got a motion by Palmquist and a second by Penscover to send it back to Finance and Property Committee to continue the discussion on paying for these lights. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 6 ayes to 2 nays. Item 6, Mr. Catno.
All right, so this is in regards to a possible agreement to obtain former Northern Steel Castings property from Wood County. Kyle can perhaps add more information after this, but so currently the property is owned by the county. The city would be looking to take it on and finish what demolition and restoration would be needed at that property. My concern with it is our previous history in the city of taking on these properties as such has not went well and has been very cost intensive. What goes along with these things is soil tests, demolition, in this case, one that would incorporate a crane and other different specialized construction materials. The total cost, if the city is to take this from the county, I mean, we can say is unknown at this time. We can guess and hope, but we wouldn't know. We are on the hook for the property if we decide to take it from the county. And in my opinion, the county has many more resources for this and funds than the city of Wisconsin Rapids has, and the residents of it. I mean, we know how it is at budget time. We're all crunched, and to take on another property like this, is high risk to me. And it's been talked about that there would be grants, or we would hope that there would be grants to potentially fund this all. And I'm just hesitant to trust that process, as we've hoped that in the past, and it doesn't come through, and there's competing communities for this. So that's why I voted against that property and finance, and that's why I'm not in favor of it in general.
Ms. Palmquist?
I don't see the proposed agreement or the approved agreement in the packet, and I can't find it in my email. Can somebody send that to me? What agreement was approved?
Mr. Kearns?
I believe Sue had emailed the agreement outside of the property and finance packet to you separately for the property and finance meeting. It was a two-page agreement that basically outlined that the property, 339th Avenue South, would be purchased for $1 by the city from the county, and that in good faith, the city will pursue investigation activities and redevelopment activities or remediational activities, and there were a couple other contingencies. And then on page 2 were city and county signatures, obviously, that are not signed at this point, but a very brief real estate sales agreement.
Thank you. Without looking at the contract or the agreement, is there any way to add in contingencies for the soil samples or the cost? Because I think that is part of my hesitation as well, is that we don't know and we can't guarantee how much it's going to cost to deconstruct this property without having that soil sample. And I wouldn't buy a house without testing the well and the sewer and the water. And I feel like it's a good protection for the city to have that our purchase would be contingent, or our acquiring of this property would be contingent upon that soil sample.
I'll have to raise my own hand. Mr. Kearns, could you, what's the reasoning behind why the county doesn't want to do this and we do?
Yeah, so the county isn't necessarily equipped with the staff to be able to proactively pursue brownfield site redevelopment. They encompass, obviously, the entire county, and their community and economic development staff are focused on primarily on the smaller communities, right, that need more assistance because as a bigger municipality, we typically have more staff to be able to play proactive role in redevelopment such as this. So it's very common across the nation for municipalities to play a proactive role in redevelopment of brownfield sites to an extent where state agencies such as the DNR and the WEDC have created specific programs with eligibility only allowed by government agencies such as cities or counties to access those funds and pursue that redevelopment. Because the private sector typically will not do it, especially if, in the case of this, there's been a catastrophe or a loss. The business has, has dissolved. There is no entity that exists to clean it up. And in this case, when there were 3 years worth of back taxes, the city had a few options. We could have obviously convinced the county to take it due to tax delinquency, which they did. We could have entered into a separate private agreement with the former owner, or we could have gone through the condemnation process and taken it via condemnation statutes under Wisconsin law. The easiest route seemed to be, because we were at the 3-year mark, convincing the county to take it, and they did in good faith with the understanding that the city would eventually purchase the property for next to nothing. So that's the way it's been described over the last couple of years to council, is that playing a proactive role in redevelopment involves the city. because I don't think it would happen otherwise. The county has indicated that they will not pursue proactive means to clean it up. The previous owner did not do that it'd be the 6 years of ownership after the 2017 fire. And so that's where municipalities can play that critical role in getting it back on the taxes, accessing those grants and cleaning it up, and hopefully creating new value.
Is there, let's say we're this far along in the process with the grants, phase 1 going into phase 2. Typically, do we get this far along and then they pull the carpet out from underneath the community and say, okay, we're not doing anything more with you, or does the process usually continue forward?
The process typically continues, and between the WEDC and the DNR, they have different programs that you can stack and that you can use along the way. For example, the WEDC's program will help cover the costs for demolition, whereas the DNR program will initially cover the costs for environmental site assessment, and then both have different programs for remediation. If there is contamination that exists, they both have programs that can cover the cost, not fully, but can cover a substantial amount of the cost. The other thing we have is this is within the downtown TIF district that has an expenditure period in 2027, and it is doing very well. I think we have a $3 million plus increment that exists that we could utilize to cover the matching costs for any of those grants. And it is, it's my will to try to pursue these grants as quickly as possible so that we're not butting up against that 2027 expenditure period in the TIF, so that we wouldn't have to utilize additional city dollars to cover that matching expense.
Okay, thank you. So let's just say that all of a sudden everything dries up and disappears. There's no more grants. There's no more state. Paul, if you could, do we have the resources and capability to clean this entire site up with our own resources if we needed to?
Depending upon what was found as far as contamination and things like that.
Just the site itself, the physical building and concrete and everything that's there?
Yeah, most definitely. We looked at it probably 18 months ago. Myself and a few of our staff members also had another contractor look at it with us because we, with our excavator, was concerned about the proximity of our machine to when we were taking down the high structure where the crane was. So we looked at it and figured within a day that we could have that high structure on the ground with the a week with the assistant of another contractor that had a longer arm on the excavator. We weren't concerned about it at all, no.
So for minimal cost, we could clean up the site if we needed to, if everything else went away?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what your definition of minimum is, but, I mean, it would.
We have the resources already
Yeah,
besides
correct.
the crane. Okay, thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Curtins, can you tell me how long the county has owned that property?
They've owned it for about a year.
About a year. Do you know the date that that fire occurred at that facility that rendered it?
2017, I think it
2017?
was maybe spring or summer
Okay.
of 2017,
So
or late winter.
since 2017, this structure has been on as an eyesore on full display on one of our major thoroughfares. So I think now is the time to do something, especially with grants available to us. And obviously, if the county has no interest in pursuing taking care of this, I think it becomes our responsibility, regardless of what kind of possible contamination or not is there, we'll have to deal with it because it's affecting the appearance of our city and most likely probably in a negative way affecting the property values in the adjacent area of that facility. So I'd be in favor of, moving forward with this plan.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
I got a motion by Pluis. Second by Tim. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 7 ayes to 1 nay. Item B, Public Works Committee meeting held on May 8th, 2025. Ms. Palmquist.
The Public Works Committee met on Thursday, May 8th, 2025 in the council chambers at City Hall. All members were present except for Vice Chair Austin, who was excused, and Alderperson Pollock attended in Austin's absence. Item 1, call to order. The meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. Item 2, review the engineering and street monthly report. The reports were reviewed. Item 3, consider an ordinance amendment to Chapter 27, adding 10 parking permit stalls to the Market Street Square lot. This was discussed. A motion made by Penscover, second by Pollock, to amend the parking ordinance as presented. Motion carried 3-0. Item 4, consider a resolution to set the permit parking fee. Motion by Palmquist, second by Penscover, to approve the yearly permit parking fee as identified in the resolution. Item carried 3-0. Item 5, review and consider the preliminary resolution for public work improvements on 2nd Street North from East Jackson Street to Market Street in 2026. Motion by Penscover, second by Pollock, to approve the resolution. Motion carried 3-0. Item 6, review and consider a preliminary resolution for public work improvements on 3rd Street North from Spring Street to Cherry Street in 2026. Motion by Palmquist, second by Penscover, to approve the preliminary resolution. Motion carried 3-0. Item 7 is to review and consider removing the sidewalk adjacent to the property at 1240 14th Street North. Motion by Penscover, second by Palmquist, to approve the removal of the sidewalk adjacent, and the motion carried 3-0. Item 8 was to review and consider removing the sidewalk adjacent to the property located at 1140 16th Street North and 1131 16th Street North. Motion by Palmquist, second by Penscover, to remove the remaining sidewalk. Motion carried 3-0. Item 9 was to review and consider the resolution for public work improvements on 12th Street North from Baker Street to Franklin Street in 2026. Motion by Penscover, second by Pollock, to approve. Motion carried 3-0. Item 10 was to review and consider the resolution for public work improvements on Franklin Street from 12th Street North to 14th Street North in 2026. Motion by Penscover, second by Pollock, to approve. Motion carried 3-0. Item 11 was to review the referral list. The referral list was reviewed with no additions or removals. Item 12 was to set the next meeting date. Their next regular meeting will be June 6th at 5 p.m. Item 13 was to adjourn. Motion by Penscover, second by Palmquist, to adjourn. Meeting adjourned at 5:36 with the motion carrying 3-0. I do have one clarification on the minutes that are submitted. Items 9 and 10 should read the resolutions in 2027, correct, Joe?
That is correct, yes.
With that, I submit them with minor revisions to approve. On the agenda and the minutes, the item is stated as, let's say, item 9, for example. Review and consider preliminary resolution for public work improvements on 12th Street North from Baker Street to Franklin Street in 2026. That should read 2027.
Okay,
And what was approved was 2027.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
All right, got a motion by Palmquist, seconded by Tim. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your vote. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item C, Human Resource Committee meeting held on May 5th, 2025. Mr. Plewis.
Human Resource Committee held a meeting on May 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the first floor conference room at City Hall. All committee members were present. Also in attendance were Alderpersons Austin, Tim, Penscover, Veneman. Also in attendance, Julie Tim, Mayor Zacher, City Attorney Sue Schill, and Human Resource Manager Ryan Hartman, and Fire Chief Ben Goodrow. Item 1, call to order. Chairperson Pluis called the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Item 2, an HR update provided, no action taken. Item number 3, discussion led by the mayor regarding fire department staffing levels. Discussion took place, no action was taken. Item number 4, discuss and consider for approval revisions to the IT manager job description. Motion by Catnaw, seconded by Pollock to approve the proposed revisions to the IT manager job description as presented. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 5, discuss referral from Alderperson Catnaw to consider providing a short-term disability policy for city employees. Discussion took place. Staff were directed to obtain proposals for the short-term disability policies. Item number 6, the committee may go to closed session under section 19.85, paragraph 1E under the Wisconsin statute, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Motion by Catnaw, second by Pollock to go into closed session. Roll call vote was taken with all members voting in the affirmative. Motion carried 3-0. In closed session, the committee was provided an update and discussed negotiation and bargaining strategy regarding labor negotiations with the WRPPA and the IAFF. No action was taken. The committee will adjourn in closed session. Motion was made by Pluis, second by Pollock to adjourn in closed session. Motion carried 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 6:55 p.m. With that, I make a motion to approve.
I get a motion by Pluis to approve, seconded by Austin. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your vote. Motion passes 8 ayes, 0 nays. Item D, Legislative Committee meeting held on May 6, 2025. Mr. Catnaw.
Thank you. The Legislative Committee held a meeting on Tuesday, May 6th at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers. Item 1, the meeting was called to order at 6:30 p.m. All members were present. Item 2, discuss proposed revisions to Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code regarding the keeping of honeybees. Motion by Palmquist, second by Catnaw to approve the recommended ordinance with changes as discussed, revising Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code regarding the keeping of honeybees. Motion carried 2-1 with Pluis voting in the negative. Item 3, adjourn. Meeting adjourned at 7:11 p.m. And with that, I submit these minutes for approval. Motion.
All right, I got a motion by Catnaw to approve the minutes. I get a second by Tim. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Item 13, reports of other committees, commissions, boards, and departments. Everything was submitted. I encourage anyone, if they have questions about those minutes, to reach out to the department heads or the boards, the leaders of those boards, and get your questions answered. They appreciate it. Item 14, referrals to committees. Ms. Gossick.
We have 2 referrals. One was by Alderperson Catnaw to the Human Resources Committee, considering a short-term disability policy, and I think that was already taken up at the meeting. And then one from Alderperson Palmquist to the Finance and Property Committee to review the terms and conditions for the 2026 Southwood County Humane Society contract.
All right. Thank you. Item 15, adjournment. What are your wishes? I get a motion by Pluis to
Adjourn.
adjourn, second by Palmquist. All those in favor, go ahead and cast your votes. Motion passes 8 ayes to 0 nays. Meeting closes at 7:10 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming.